here at LEDLYL Knives. Jonathan Caruso. Jonathan, thank you for having us out here.
Sir.
We're going to check out, well, it's my pleasure. We're going to check out what you're doing out here in Arkansas.
Sounds good.
And see how he goes about making knives. We're going to have a little fun. We're going to have a little talk. We're going to show you his shop. Welcome to LEDLYL Knives. LEDLYL?
Yes, sir.
LEDLYL. LEDLYL.
LEDLYL.
LEDLYL.
Live every day like your last. Or you can say that. Yes,
I
sir.
like that.
Get our piece of steel in there. 80 CRV2. First thing we'll do is forge this point in. I'm drawing out the point right now, and then I'll isolate where I want the ricasso and my bevels to get drawn down. And then once I isolate that, what I'll do is I'll come to the tire hammer and draw those bevels out on the dies and get them isolated, and then bring it back to the anvil and refine that bevel and refine those edges. So now I'm going to decide how long I want my blade. Starting at 4 inches, I'll be able to hammer those bevels down and draw this out about another ½ inch. So that'll be a 4.5 inch hunter, drop point hunter, or a clip point hunter, one of the two, just depending on what I feel like at that point. Isolate that ricasso. Get those bevels started a little bit. Nice. And then we'll go to the power hammer on the next heat. I've been making knives now close to 10 years. Started on just the idea of fixing a buddy's pocket knife, putting scales on it, and then decided, you know what, I'm gonna try to make a knife again. First knife I made, I was 16 and didn't know what I was doing. So getting those bevels drawn down a little bit more. Right now we're about twice as thick as we want to be on the edge, so we'll do one more heat and draw it down some more. All right, so there's our bevels. What we'll do is we'll stick this back in, get another heat on it, and then we'll refine that shape and refine those edges and get it all looking more like a knife instead of a leaf. Yeah, so started getting into it, and then my wife said, "You've got too many hobbies, you need to pick a hobby." So I picked knife making, and she sent me to school and went through the American Bladesmith Society Intro to Bladesmithing in North Carolina, and fell in love, and I decided, yep, this is what I'm gonna do when I retire from the Marine Corps. So here I am. Getting that shape refined a little bit better.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We knocked it down that way, so the tip is more in line with the ricasso. I'll knock this down a little bit that direction, and then refine that clip a little bit more, and then we'll start working on the ricasso and the tang from there. Making sure everything's in line for the most part. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start focusing on my ricasso area, and then I'll probably hack it off here and work on my tang. You know, you can look at it as being the very first tool that was ever used, and it's the most widely tool that is used today in the sense of in the kitchen, pocket knife, utility knife, whatever the case may be. If it's a cutting tool, it's used all over the world. So that aspect of it, but also if anybody that ever makes knives ever gets bored with the fact of whatever they're making, within knife making, you can go down a different rabbit hole and find a whole nother challenge. So there's folders, there's liner, I mean, within the folders, there's liner locks, and I mean, you name it. Working on the tang and the ricasso now. So what I'm about to do is isolate my tang. So I'm gonna mark this out. So I want my ricasso to be, I want to give myself enough room, so about right there. Now when I go to finish the knife, the ricasso will move forward a little bit. And that way I have enough room. But from here, I'm going to isolate this and then draw this out into an actual tang. I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to use the power hammer to isolate this tang. I'm going to use a pair of straight ring tongs right there where I marked it off where I want my tang to be. Basically what it's done is it's isolated that area. Now the tang, I'll draw that out on the power hammer.
Yeah. And
it'll make quick work of it.
Absolutely. That's a great way of doing that. Man, that's fantastic. So did you like that little tidbit of information you just got? I mean, this is really good stuff. To bring you this kind of content, we need your help. We need you to give us a thumbs up. Like right now, just go down there, hit the thumbs up. It's painless, I guarantee you. Subscribe, ring the bell, also press that bell notification, put all down there. And if you would, go to bcknife.com and buy something. It doesn't have to be expensive. Buy a little something. If you order $100 or more, you get it shipped for free. So go to bcknife.com, buy something that allows me to stay out here on the road, which is very expensive, and bring you this wonderful content. All right, right back to it with Jonathan. So for all the new guys out there, how long did it take you to start being a little more comfortable with that power hammer?
So it took me probably 6 months using it, probably 3 or 4 times a week. At the time, I had a full-time job when I got it, so about 3 or 4 times a week for about 6 months to get to know the ins and outs of the whole thing and really understand where it was hidden, how it was hidden, how to control it, and really be able to fine-tune not just the use of it, but fine-tune myself and how much pressure I can put on it and get it to hit real soft or not hit at all.
Yeah.
And then get it to hit hard. So
sure.
Yeah.
It takes
about
a while.
6 months.
Yeah.
All right, now that we've got the blade, the ricasso, and the tang isolated, what I'll do is I'll get the ricasso, half the tang and half the blade heated up. I'll flatten the ricasso area as far as this way, and then make everything else flat from there, the tang and the blade flat, and get the blade centered as well if it's not already. And then we'll be done on the forging process. Everything on the knife is based off of the ricasso area. If the ricasso is straight and everything is in line with the ricasso, you're in good business, and it makes a lot less work for you later on.
Really?
There's no end to knife making. From process to materials to you name it. It's just, there's no end. If anybody ever got bored making knives, that's their own fault. And so that's one thing I like about making knives, is just the aspect of, one, making it, say, an heirloom item or knife for an individual and it getting passed down. Seeing somebody's eyes light up whenever they get a knife too. Just checking to make sure the blade is centered on the ricasso. Check to make sure everything is in line off the ricasso, from the heel of the knife to the tip and the back of the tang to the front of the tang. Make sure we're all good. Inch ricasso, and we've got our tang. This will all be refined further once this cools and goes through a normalization cycle or thermal cycle. We'll stick it back in the forge, heat it up to about 1600 degrees, pull it out, let it cool down until it's dark like this. Yeah. Put it back in, let it get up to about 1500, do it again up to 1300, and then that will, what that's doing is that's relaxing the molecules and dispersing them evenly through the steel so that we don't have more carbon, or just from the hammering process, you're not collecting molecules in one concentrated area than the other. So we'll send it through the normalizing cycle, and then we'll be able to refine it on the grinder after that. So one of the things it's hard to see maybe on camera or whatnot, but it's brighter here than it is here at the tip.
Yeah.
What I want to do is I want to get the whole blade a nice even temperature all the way through, all the way through the tang. The tang's not so important as it is the blade, but you want to get the tang, the ricasso, and the blade all the same color. Yeah. That way it's all heated up to the same temperature. This is called normalization or thermal cycling. From here, we'll put it in the vise and let it cool down. and that will go through its process of cooling and letting all those molecules react the same. This is a really cool process here because you can see the thinner edge cooling down first because there's less mass there to hold the heat like there is in the ricasso area. Going back into the forge now for the second thermal cycling. We'll get it up to not so bright of an orange. We'll get it a dull orange or a medium orange. Turn the forge down a little bit so I don't overdo it. And that will help me, well, basically not overdo it and help me get the right temperature. It'll take a little bit longer to get to that point, but it's kind of insurance.
Now you watch it pretty closely in this step to make sure it doesn't overheat, right?
Yes. And the biggest, it doesn't necessarily have to go from 1600 to 1450 or 1500 to 1300 degrees. Mainly what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the same temperature throughout the whole blade all 3 times. And that's basically going to relax that steel, relax those molecules and get them evenly spaced throughout the material. And you're not going to have any hard spots, so to speak, or I say hard, but you're not going to have more carbon in one area or alloys in one area than you do in another, versus just trying to get heating it up one time, normalizing it once, and saying it's good. So going in for the last time, for the last normalization, and heating up, turn the forge down again. So heating this up to where it's just orange, and then bringing it back out for the last time and letting it cool down completely. All right, so we've got the blade all thermocycled and everything. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna grind the profile. So we're gonna grind the profile of the blade, get it all situated and what we want, and then isolate the ricasso, get that. That'll be the first thing we do.
Show us the ricasso area. What is that?
So the ricasso area,
for those that don't know, what's a ricasso?
Is this area here where the bevels are going to start and the actual heel of the blade is going to start. So anything behind that up to the tang is called the ricasso.
Okay.
So the ricasso is the base of the whole knife. So everything from the ricasso to the tip has to line up with the middle of the ricasso, and the back of the tang to the middle of the ricasso all has to line up. It has to be the same width here and here as it is here and here on the bottom of the ricasso. And I typically like to have a ricasso that's about anywhere from 1/2 to 5/8 inch from the bevels to the back side of it where the guard is going to start. So we'll do that, and then we'll profile it, get the ricasso isolated and square it up, and then we'll move on to the rest of the blade doing the bevels. This is a tag grinder, a triple arm grinder from Wilmot Grinders out of South Carolina. And
they make good grinders.
They do. I've got 2 of them. Bought this one just because the schoolhouse in Haywood had one, and Jim Kroll has one, and I like the way it's set up, so I got another one. And I still have yet to set that one up. That's got a 3 horsepower motor, runs off 220.
3 horsepower, nice.
And this one is 1.5 horse and runs off of 120. So it gets the job done, but I need something that's going to hog off a lot more steel. So that's why I got that one.
Very, very nice.
So here we go. We're going to run about 60, 70%. Now that I've got the profile ground out, I'm going to isolate the ricasso and get it squared. So I'll take my little wooden stick because it's easier to hold on to. Now that I've got the scale, forge scale off the ricasso area, we'll take a caliper and just check the front of my ricasso, just to make sure everything is, so right there I'm gonna check that, then I'm gonna go back to the back, and we're good there at the top. We're a little bit narrow at the base, so I need to take more material off of the spine. So if I go down here and I take my measurement here instead, and then come to the top, it won't fit.
Won't fit, yeah.
It definitely won't fit back at the back. So I'm gonna take a little bit more material off the spine. Or not off the spine, but off the sides of the ricasso at the spine.
Don't forget, thumbs up, hit the button, the subscribe button, subscribe to our channel. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Right now, just go down there and do it. If you'd like to go see his knives and buy something from him, you need to go ahead and look down below. We've got a link to his website there as well. So yeah, by all means, go to bcknife.com to buy you some knives.
So we've got our 36 grit profile on the blade, cleaned up the ricasso and the bevels, got our plunge line established, and now what I'll probably do is I'll go to a 60 grit belt and refine this a little bit more in the plunge area and takes a little bit more of the forge scale off. And after we do 60 grit, we'll do a little bit of 120 on the bevels, and then we'll heat treat it. So what I try to do is I try to forge to a nickel, nickel's thickness on the edge, and then grind to a dime. And then at that point I can heat treat, typically without any problems of warpage or cracking, depending on how I heat treat it, or in that process it just eliminates a lot more trouble if I grind to a dime.
Yeah.
Leave it a little bit thick. There's the difference between 120 and 60. So the first thing I want to do is heat up the ricasso, bottom of the ricasso. Make sure I get the heat even on both sides.
Sure.
Then I'm gonna come up here to the back of the spine. Heat that up, come back.
So instead of a clay, you're using a torch to do your differential tempering.
Right.
You keep the spine softer and you harden the edge.
Yes.
And then it has those properties you're looking for. Super resilient blade that won't break, won't be brittle, but an edge that will hold an edge very well.
All right, so you can see our differential heat treat there.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to check for hardness. So on the spine, the file cuts into the spine, but on the edge,
oh yeah, you can hear the difference.
It's got a lot different sound to it.
Yep.
It'll cut there.
Cut easily, yeah.
But it won't cut into the cutting edge.
Yep.
And for everybody that's wondering what oil we quenched in.
Yeah, that's
with it
something,
being,
everyone does it differently.
Yep, 80 for 80 CRV2, you want to quench in AAA. I have quenched 80 CRV 5160 in Parks 50, but you run a greater risk of more cracks and ruining the blade after you spend all that work hammering it and forging it and then grinding it. But it can be done. You just got to be very careful. And it also lends itself, whenever you do a heat treat like that, you have a little bit more flexibility in heat treating it because you have a soft spine and a hard edge. So you have more flexibility, more give in the blade between the soft and the hard.
Yeah.
So right here in this line, it's going to, this spine being soft is going to absorb a lot of that that hardness, and you're not going to run as great of a risk as a crack. So we'll clean this up a little bit and be able to see that hamon a little bit better in there, and we'll throw a quick etch on it just to see what we got, and so we can see that hamon, flame painted hamon.
And that's what we call it when we have the differential tempering, that line in there.
Yes. Now back to the grinder room.
Now, be honest, are your belts always that neat and organized?
Yeah, yes.
Did you do that for me?
No, because I often don't grab new belts. I have a bad habit of trying to use a belt until it's absolutely gone. Yeah. So whenever you do grab a new belt, if you're chasing scratches, just grab a new belt because it makes a world of difference. Yeah, it does. But yeah, they're typically like that because I don't grab them all that often. Well done, you're making the rest of us look bad. LEDLYL knives was a motto of a buddy that I had in the Marine Corps, and it's live every day like your last. So it's an acronym, and he passed away and from complications through the Marine Corps and whatnot. But his motto was live every day like your last. And so after he passed, I was just getting into starting my business, knife making and everything. And I asked his wife if I could use that motto to name my business. And she said he would absolutely be honored. And that's what I wanted to do, was just basically honor him through that. And so Nathan McMillan was his name, Staff Sergeant Nathan McMillan. And yeah, it's just been a blessing being able to honor him, honor his life through my business. And this is also a J weight. Yeah. The difference between a J weight and a Y weight or an X weight is a J weight is very flexible from side to side. Yep. A X weight or Y weight cannot be flexed as easily. Lots of different. A lot has to do with the backing. You can't just look at the abrasive. You want to look at the backing as well. It's amazing how well defined that line is. Yes, and it depends on the steel too, how that line performs. Yeah. If it's W2, you get more clouds and more flame action, so to speak, or smoke action. Yeah. Whereas 1075, 80 CRV, 5160, that line is very definite. Got a couple of orders that I'm working on. One is beginning of this last year, I had an order for the Patriot movie Tomahawk. So made the Tomahawk, and of course it's got all the scroll work and everything in the handle. So making that to match, making that Bowie knife to match. What are you going to use for the inlay? So actually the handle, there's not going to be any inlay, it's just going to be engraving here. Okay. And then the guard is going to have the diamond on it like it's got on the Tomahawk and whatnot. Yep. And so this is just going to be all engraved with the pin incorporated in the scroll. And then this is a takedown that I'm working on for an auction knife. I've had a great trip out here in Arkansas. I hope to get back here next year because there's a whole lot more knife makers out here that I can get to. So I'm hoping to get back. It's beautiful out here. Thank you for having me. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It's been a true pleasure. Yes, sir. It's been great having you out here. And for those of you at home from Conway, Arkansas, until next time, we'll see you then.